Welcome to Real Paranormal Activity, the network. Entertainment you'll enjoy.
You are listening to an RPA production, where people gather. LaFosse Corporation, LLC.
Hello, my Mysterians. Terry from Texas with another episode of Terry's Mysterious Moments. I don't really have a set story for tonight, so it's going to be just some personal information and thoughts and histories. I've been interested in the paranormal since I was a kid. I've loved ghost movies, monster movies, a lot of things. Of course, as a child, I was scared by some, but I have to admit that I've always enjoyed being scared from a movie that I knew would be over with and I could go on about my business. But you know, growing up in the country where I grew up, out in the Central Texas area, we had some strange things that happened at the home I grew up in. I would stay home by myself a lot on nights when the family would go to a football game. If I didn't have to be there, then I would stay at home and watch a movie or a TV show or something. But I would also be able to stay up late because I made a deal with my mother that the first time I didn't get up when she told me to, I would be going to bed at 8 o'clock, that kind of thing. Well, I learned to live with staying up late and getting up early because I wanted to watch certain shows that were on. And they were just regular TV shows that were syndicated late at night. Well, they also had talk shows that came on at night. And I would watch some of those talk shows, and they would have interesting people on there at times. They had the cast from the movie The Devil's Reign with William Shatner on there one time, and they talked about strange things that happened on the set. Not necessarily during filming, but during the time they were in this town. They would have guests on there that would talk about paranormal activity that would go on in hospitals with sick people, with injured people. They would talk about different houses that they had visited, different situations that people had brought up to them. One situation that caught my ear and my interest was when they were talking about if you're surrounded by spirits, ghosts, if you will, and you're in a room and you see flashes of light, that could be spirits. And they just momentarily give off energy. So I equate that with what people now refer to as orbs in some cases. I don't think all orbs are supernatural. I think some of them are super dust and super bugs. But there are enough evidences that some orbs could very possibly be spirits. I would notice that in my family room while I was watching these shows, I would have a light on because, number one, I'm not stupid. And number two, because we had scorpions and I wanted to make sure what I was walking on. I would sit there watching TV and I would see these flashes of light, like little cameras going off with flash bulbs. And it was interesting to me. And we had some very interesting situations in the house over the years where I would hear something or feel something. Something would happen in my presence that was kind of unusual. And this was not all at one time. This was spread out over, Lord, 12, 13 years. And eventually my brothers and sister left home to go seek their lives elsewhere. And it all kind of fell down on me that all this stuff was happening. Like the night that I saw what I call a demon in my bedroom, and I had those shutters, not the shutters, the blinds on the windows that if you pull them down and let go of them, they go up, out of sight. Well, they were down about halfway on the windows, and we had the double hung windows, and one of them was open just a little bit at the top. So there was air moving the blinds back and forth, you could see, and the space between the windows would get larger and smaller as the blinds moved in the wind. Well, that wasn't a big deal, but I was asleep, and I started having a dream about these two dogs or wolves with red eyes standing, sitting beside my bed. And when I looked up, there was a red-eyed man standing there wearing what I would call a Dracula cape, with a high stand-up collar. And I cut loose with a scream that my mother should have heard, seeing she was in the room 2 over from me. But she said she didn't hear a thing all night. And I crab walked backwards off my bed. And when I got my feet on the ground and I could stand up, I realized there wasn't anything there. But my question is, had there been something there before I reacted? I had other visitors during the night that I never saw, but I experienced. I had strange lights around my house. Over a couple of years in my late high school, early college careers, I saw a couple or 3 UFOs. Now, I didn't see aliens. I'm not too sure that I believe in aliens. They may be out there, but it's not a belief of mine that I worry about. But I saw 2 what I would call UFOs, and we're talking classical UFOs, and I don't use that new highfalutin term UAP because, number one, I'm not a hipster. Number 2, I'm an old school kind of person, and I'm going to say UFO because that's what it is. Unidentified flying object. There have been other things in my life. When I moved down here to San Antonio and got married, we moved into a house that, because I was doing security, I was away from home a lot at night. And my wife would later tell me, in years later, that she would hear her name being called while I was out at work. And she said it would be my voice. So I asked her, did you ever respond? Did you ever say, yes, what? To these voices calling your name? She said, no, I never did. I said, well, that's good, because I had heard from years gone by that if you ever heard your name being called, not to respond. If there was nobody around you that would be calling your name, do not respond, because this one expert had said that would cause an attachment to you. And I don't think I've ever responded when I heard my name being called either. So, but we came to an understanding that the first house we lived in here was alive with spirits. We would hear conversations in the den, and they would kind of move across the room from one wall to the other and go out the wall. The house we live in now has definitely had spiritual activity, because my wife and I were sitting in the bedroom one night watching TV, and she was at one computer on a desk, and I was at another computer on a desk across the way. and footsteps walked out of my bathroom right between us, and they were heel toe, and walked into our kitchen and on away from the room. And I thought, well, this is where my wife goes absolutely positively nuts. But she looked at me and she said, he's active tonight. Who's active? The ghost. Oh, you think that's a ghost? She said, yeah, I've been hearing him for years. So, okay. That's interesting. So we come to an agreement that the house does have spiritual activity. Some of the jobs I worked while I was security had some strange things that happened. I worked downtown at a bank on the midnight shift, and I did that for 5 years. And the building, I think, had some haunting in it that was just outrageously unique. I was talking to one of my guards on a holiday weekend, so there was only us 3 guards in the building. The bank people were not there because it was a holiday weekend, and they would be coming in the next night to do the weekend business of the bank. They were running checks and whatever else. And while I'm sitting here talking to this guard, somebody from the bank area, which is about half a block away from us in the building on the basement floor, called out, "Hello." We stopped, both looked down there, and he went down to check it out. He checked up on the street level. He said there was nobody there at all. Nobody had come in. So I still don't know what that was. I don't know what it was all about anyway. And because I live in an area here in San Antonio that people have talked about the different hauntings so much, I decided to be able to go check them out. The haunted railroad tracks of San Antonio, that's a completely false situation, because there was never a bus accident that happened at that railroad crossing. There was a bus accident in the 1930s up in Utah that killed a bunch of school children. And for some reason, it was reported widely across the country because it was such a sad story. And it got stuck in the San Antonio psyche. I live in a town where people see Jesus in a tortilla shell or a tortilla, and the Virgin Mary on their kitchen floor. This is the kind of situation we live in. But I've gone out to the haunted tracks, and it's a gravity hill. And in the last couple of years, they redid that entire crossing and the grade, and you don't get any reports from it anymore. They have a thing called the Donkey Lady Bridge out on the southwest side, which supposedly a woman had been injured in a fire, and her hands had been turned into, no fingers, and they look like hooves. And if you go out there and say something, she would supposedly jump out from under the bridge and jump on your car and attack and do all kinds of things. I went out there, and not a thing. Now, when I first got to San Antonio in 1986, I worked at the Menger Hotel. The Menger Hotel is literally across the street from the Alamo. And I had heard things about the Menger. The housekeeper who was shot by her common-law husband and was taken back in the hotel and died in the hotel. He thought she was playing around. I think he was drinking. Captain Richard King, I think that's the title they gave him. Richard King, who owned the King Ranch here in Texas, used to stay there a lot, and he died there of, I want to say, some kind of cancer. But they say they see him roaming around the hotel along with this maid that was killed, and apparently several other situations. I worked there before what is now called the River Center was built. This was 86, and the River Center was the construction on it was just starting with the leveling of the ground and all that. And You hear the term, shabby chic. That to me was what the Menger Hotel was back then. Even though it was beautiful, you just walked in and it felt old. Well, not being from San Antonio and having only been in San Antonio once, I think it was, before in high school for a contest, I didn't know downtown San Antonio. So the night that was my last night on that site, the next day, my now wife was going to come down. We were going to have breakfast. And then after she went on to work, I was going to go to the Alamo. So I asked the guy behind the counter, I said, so this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. Where is the Alamo? And he turned and pointed away from me into the wall and said, it's across the street. So I walked out front and walked to the corner and I said, well, that's the entire Alamo right there. And I never saw anything at the Alamo or felt anything at the Alamo. But the Menger at the time had a bunch of rooms that were closed off and the doorknobs were taken off. I asked him, I said, what's that all about? He said, oh, we've got infestations of bats. So they had to close off the rooms. So, well, that's interesting. And there's a motor hotel at the back of the Menger. And on my rounds, I would go through the hotel and then come down and through the motor hotel and come back up to the front desk. Well, one night I found a door in the motor hotel open. And I went and got one of the guys from the desk, and we went down there and checked it out. Nobody in the room. No evidence of anybody in the room. You know, it's not like somebody just left their door open. So he pulled it shut and locked it. And I made my next round an hour and a half later, and the room was open again. And I went down and got him. And we checked the room out. There was nobody in the room. So we locked it again. Well, on my next round, the door was open a third time. So I didn't bother to go get him. I just went in and started turning lights on everywhere. There was nobody in the room. The beds were not disturbed. So I turned everything off, came back out of the room and pulled the door shut and locked it. And when I went down by the desk, I said, that door was open again, but I just checked the room out and closed the door. So I had to put that in my report that was going on. That was kind of an odd thing. The Menger at the time, some of it reminded me as if I were on a gambling boat, like a river boat, because the corners in some areas of the hotel were not 90-degree, just boom, go to the side. They were curved corners. So I'm just imagining in my mind that I'm in an old time gambling ship. And, it was a very interesting place to work. Like I said, I didn't see anything, didn't really feel anything there except just some heebie-jeebies in some of the areas. But I think that could just be the fact that it was the hotel. I spent some time in the Gunter Hotel, which was where the singer Robert Johnson recorded back in the 30s. Local heir of a family that supposedly killed a prostitute and cut her up in one of the rooms there and then carried her body out in multiple suitcases. So I stayed in the Menger back when I was in high school, and it was a nice place. It again was shabby chic, but since that time that I stayed there, these hotels have undergone a resurgence. There's a lot more money put into them, so they were able to fluff up themselves into nicer, cleaner looking, more updated places. I really don't call myself a paranormal investigator because I don't get out and go look for it. I figure I'm living with enough of it. I don't need to find it somewhere else. But because I'm home, usually alone, my wife stays at her parents' house because she's just down the road from the school she works at, and her parents are getting older. And I would almost rather her be with them just in case something happens. Now, what if something happens to me? Same situation, but she can't be in two places at once, and I would rather her be with her parents. But I spend so much time alone, and what I have is 3 cats that are with me all the time. But I see little things, little black things that run by me when there's no cat around. And I see other things that go by my windows when there's nobody out in the yard. And it's really, really kind of strange to be in this house. Somebody said, you ought to have an investigator come in and check it out. No, I don't need to because I know pretty much what it is. But I look at things from a Christian point of view, that I am a Christian. I claim to be born again. So I think I am protected from this stuff. I do pray about it. I do ask for protection. But I don't go overboard. I'm not a person that, as we said at my church for a while, I don't find a demon under every bush, or in this case, under every bed in my house. So, I'm okay. I get by. I do enjoy hearing stories about what's going on in the world as far as the paranormal goes. If you have a supernatural story that you'd like to share, please contact me. Terry's Mysterious Moments at gmail.com. I would love to hear it. And with your permission, I would love to read it on the air, or put your recording on the air if you want to record it. I have lately, by the way, this is the beginning of season 9 for Terry's Mysterious Moments. Last week should have been the first show, but I was under the weather. And I'm happy to keep doing the show as long as anybody will listen to me and as long as you enjoy it. But I would like to know what you think. I still thank Aaron and for his help in getting me into this. He was impressed by my stories and offered me a partial time slot on his show. And then within days, offered me my own show. And I appreciate that. And it's been 8 great years plus a week, not counting the individual stories that I sent in prior. But I've enjoyed the time, and I've enjoyed people listening to me, and enjoyed some of the comments that I've got. And not that I've gotten a lot of comments. That's not what I'm saying. But if you have stories, if you want me to hear them, send them to me. I'll read them out on the air if you want me to. I'm game. Anyway, that's what I have for this week. I'm sorry it's not a ghost story, but that's Aaron's job to do ghost stories because you send him your ghost stories, and that's fine. That's how I got started with the Aaron. So you folks take care. You have a great week, and be careful out there. And don't let this late bout of winter do you wrong. So stay safe. And we'll talk to you next time on Terry's Mysterious Moments. Have a good one.